Board of Control meeting. It is 11:01 a.m. We have Levine Ross serving as an alternate for Meredith Turner.
Here.
Trevor Meckler serving as an alternate for Purnell Jones Jr.
Here.
Melanie Say serving as an alternate for Mike Dever.
Here.
Michael Chambers, Fiscal Officer, serving as chairman.
Here.
Paul Porter.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we have the approval of the minutes from December 2nd. I will make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Paul Porter. All in favor to approve, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved.
We now have Councilmember Dale Miller.
Is there any public comment?
No public comment.
Let's go to our first item, please.
First item, BC 2024-906, Department of Public Works submitting an RFP exemption which will result in an award recommendation to Carasoft Technology Corporation in the amount not to exceed $12,208 for the purchase of various engineering software program subscriptions for the Road and Bridge Division for the period December 30th, 2024 through December 29, 2025, and submitting a purchase order with said RFP exemption.
Good morning, Melanie Say, Department of Public Works. This subscription is for our Road and Bridge and Sanitary Division. This software enables the analyzing of plans, water flow, bridge construction, and property lines related to county projects. It is on the IT standard list, and it is TAC approved.
Thank you, Melanie. Are there questions from the board on this item? Seeing no questions, I will make the motion to approve it. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. McAleer. All in favor to approve, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next item?
Next item, BC 2024-907, Department of Public Works submitting an RFP exemption which will result in a payment to Great Lakes Petroleum in the amount not to exceed $13,564.13 for the purchase of 4,620 gallons of fuel for various county facilities and submitting a purchase order with said RFP exemption.
Good morning, Melanie Say, Department of Public Works. This purchase order is to close out our previous fuel contract with Great Lakes Petroleum. We had a couple of invoices that needed to be paid out from the contract.
Thank you again, Melanie. Are there questions from the board on this item? Seeing no questions, I will make the motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. McAleer. All in favor to approve, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item is approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2024-908, Department of Public Works submitting an amendment to a contract with CBRE Incorporated for real estate strategic management services for the period July 18, 2022 through December 31st, 2024, to extend the time period to December 31st, 2025, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $450,000, effective upon signatures of all parties.
Good morning, John Myers on behalf of Department of Public Works. We're here to seek authority to extend time and funds for our consulting contract with CBRE Real Estate Services.
Thank you, Mr. Myers. Are there questions, Councilman, please?
Yes. So, could you describe the specific real estate services that are going to be provided during the coming year and what properties are going to be focused on?
Well, we're anticipating, we have, with the purchase of 1801 this past year and the build-out that's now happening, we're going to continue with our consolidation of HHS offices related to Virgil Brown and to 1801. So we will be looking at disposition strategies for Jane Edna Hunter and for the Board of Elections Hughes Building, as well as other opportunities to look for those consolidation opportunities. We'll also be continuing to look at the courthouse, new courthouse functions, which we sometimes need outside validation and outside analysis of market rates and costs and other anticipations. We have, we never a year comes that we don't have things we hadn't anticipated. So that's also why they're there, to be able to help us when things come out of the blue that we need to look at. All of our agencies are continually asking questions about potential opportunities and valuations and appraisals for different pieces of property. So those are probably the main ones. The And, you know, like, for instance, microgrid project is also looking at some property. And there's a lot of things that we look at that don't act, that we don't even have to, you know, so we're looking at options and alternatives that we need to weigh and balance before we even make some decisions.
And how are costs on the contract determined? Is it an hourly rate for
Yes, it's
services?
essentially time and material. So these funds might not be spent, it's just that we have had so much going on the last 2 years that we have depleted this contract both in time and resources, and would like to continue with so much progressing all at once with this same group, and need some additional time and funds to accomplish that.
What is the hourly rate, and is it the same as the current rate, or has it changed?
I believe the current rates are the same, and I'm sorry, I don't have those. I'm happy to get them to you. There are different rates for different functions and different personnel.
Okay, I would like to see them.
Sure, certainly.
Mr. Mackler, please.
Good morning, John. To follow up on what Councilman Miller was asking, I thought there was also, for either buying or selling, there was some commission, not just an hourly rate. Is that not correct?
We have the choice, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. McAleer, depending on the circumstances, if we're going to go a commission route or just an hourly route. It depends on what type of services, level of services, and what we feel is going to be in the best fiscal interest of the county. Generally speaking, it's still maintained at an hourly rate. There have been some circumstances that we've gone commission, like when we've been the middle person essentially with BDD properties. There's been a couple of those that have been commissioned because they're not really, we own them, but they're really BDD properties, and BDD wanted to go that direction, so.
Do you know the percentage on the commission that's in the contract, or can you just follow up with that info?
I'll be happy to follow up. I believe it's 4%.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any final questions on the item? Okay, seeing no further questions, I will make the motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Miller. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item is approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next item?
Next item, BC 2024-909, Department of Public Works submitting an amendment to a contract with Orchard Hills and McClimate Incorporated, DBA OHM Advisors, for engineering services for the Lake Road, Clifton Boulevard project in the cities of Lakewood and Rocky River in connection with the Cuyahoga County Lakefront Access Plan for the period August 10, 2022 through December 31st, 2024, to extend the time period to December 31st, 2026, to expand the scope of services to include Task 7, bridge improvements, and Task 8, additional engineering services if authorized, described in addendum to Exhibit A, effective upon signatures of all parties, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $150,000.
Good morning, Eric Mack, Public Works. This is for ongoing services that we are finishing up the design of the Lake Clifton connector. We hope to have the plans ready for sale next summer. And there was a question ahead last week talking about the total project cost. And the total estimated project cost is $11.4 million.
Thank you, Eric. Are there questions from the board on this item?
So, other than the pending ODOT grant, are all the other funding sources in hand?
Yes, we were successful on 2 federal grants for a total of $6.25 million.
We'll take it. Yes.
Are there additional questions on this item? Okay, seeing no further, I will make the motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Council Miller. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item is approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2024-910, Department of Public Works recommending an award on RQ 14481 and submitting a contract with MS Consultants Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $273,769 for engineering services for the replacement of Miles Road Bridge number 12.10 over the Chagrin River in the villages of Chagrin Falls and Moreland Hills, effective upon signatures of all parties through completion.
Good morning, Eric Mack, Public Works again. So this is for the replacement of an arch bridge that is built in 1915. and we want to hire MS to begin the design process. We put an RFQ out, and there were 5 consultants and that we reviewed and scored, and MS was the highest scoring. So so this is part 1 of a 2-part contract. Part 1 will be a feasibility study to see what kind of bridge we're going to put back, and then part 2, which will be coming next year sometime, will be for the final plans of that proposed bridge.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Are there questions from the board on this item?
When's the expected time of start of construction and completion?
So we received a federal grant for this one, and so we received 80% of a 5.6 million, so $4.5 million for this grant, and that is in 2028. So we have several years out, but that's going to take the time to figure out a design.
And why is it that this bridge needs to be replaced?
Because it's over 100 years old, and bridges typically have a 75-year life expectancy.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any additional questions? Mr. Meckler, please.
Eric, when did you say completion? I heard start date, I'm sorry, I missed the completion.
Completion is probably going to be for 2029. It's going to be 1 season, but again, they have to figure that out as part of the design process, whether they can close the road, keep it open, and that kind of thing.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no further questions, I will make the motion to approve the item. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Miller. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2024-911, Department of Public Works submitting an RFP exemption which will result in an award recommendation to Honeywell International Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $450,000 for jail fire alarm testing, inspecting, and maintenance services effective upon signatures of all parties for the period September 9, 2024 through September 8, 2027, and submitting a contract with said RFP exemption.
Good morning, Melanie Say, Department of Public Works. This contract provides preventive maintenance, support, and parts for our fire alarm system at the jail.
Thank you, Melanie. Are there questions from the board on this item? Seeing no questions, I will make the motion to approve the item. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Levine Ross. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2024-912, Department of Public Works, Division of Public Utilities, recommending an award and submitting an agreement with Cleveland State University in the amount not to exceed $50,000 for strategic planning support in developing the Cuyahoga County, Euclid, and Brooklyn microgrid projects effective upon signatures of all parties through September 30th, 2025.
Mike Foley, Division of Public Works, and Cuyahoga Green Energy. So this is a contract with Cleveland State University's Energy Policy Center. They've been really helpful as we've developed our utility. We've got a grant from Senator Brown for $1.5 million for developing this Euclid and Brooklyn microgrid project. This is to help, Cleveland State's role is to help us kind of think through regulatory, economic issues as we move forward. Our goal is to come in front of council by late spring, early summer with moving forward with approval for that project. And so this is, Cleveland State's really going to help us in the next 5 or 6 months just to get us to that point to come to council and make those recommendations to you.
Thank you, Mr. Foley. Are there questions from the board on this item? Seeing no questions, I will make a motion to approve it. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Miller. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item is approved. Thank you. Next item.
Next item, BC 2024-913, Department of Development submitting a grant agreement with Spartan Alumni Rowing Association via contract number 5010 in the amount not to exceed $131,537.22 to provide funding for brownfield remediation cleanup activities associated with the Zalcon River Landing Project located at 2900 Independence Avenue, Cleveland, for the period December 2nd, 2024 through June 2nd, 2027.
Good morning, Anthony Stella with Department of Development, here with Sona Kandawal, also from the Department of Development. This is a grant that was part of a overall $5 million ARPA allocation to help match some of the state funds. This project had received about $811,000 in state funds and $131,537 from the county to help create a recreational asset on the river, basically creating some park space from what was industrial land to be used by the Spartan Alumni Rowing Association. And we do have Aaron Markovy and Tim Markovy here also from the association to support.
Thank you, Anthony. Are there questions on this item?
Yes.
Please.
What's the specific department that, whose budget this comes from? Is this from development? Is this from capital subsidy, or where is it from?
It's general fund, but it's Department of Development. It was, there was an allocation of $5 million from a council resolution in 2022. It was originally ARPA funds that came into the department.
Okay, fine.
Mr. Mackler, please.
Good morning, Anthony. Is this on a reimbursement basis, or is this something that we give up front?
Yes, it's a reimbursement basis.
Reimbursement.
Okay, all right. Are they, how far along are they with the project, or has it not started yet?
They are pretty much done with the project, and they are waiting our fund to make it more developed.
Great.
Of that $5 million ARPA allocation, how much of that remains that has not yet been spent?
So the total remaining right now is 1.2 million, but we are anticipating a disbursement of 165,000 by the end of this year. If that happens, the remaining will be 1,048,000.
And what's the 165,000 for?
That is for another ARPA loan, IFS Properties.
Where?
Oh, is that on East 55th?
Yes,
It's IFS Properties East 55th, which is a food processing.
food processing company.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any final questions? Seeing no further questions, I will make a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Mackler. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Next item, please.
Next item, BC 2024-914, Fiscal Office submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in a payment to CoStar Realty Information Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $17,693.28 for the purchase of property and comp professional license subscriptions for the period April 1st, 2024 through March 31st, 2025, and submitting a purchase order with said RFP exemption.
Good morning, Dominique Tatum, Fiscal Department. This is a purchase order with CoStar. This software that they offer is used by our appraisers. They use this to get comps and sell information on commercial and industrial properties.
Thank you, Dominique. Are there questions from the board on this item? Seeing no questions, I will make the motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Miller. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item approved. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, before the next item, I just got a text, the live stream is down. I just was wondering if we know that, if we can try to get that up and running.
Ms. Mackler, okay.
Next item, BC 2024-915, Fiscal Office submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in award recommendation to Automated Business Equipment Corporation, also known as F&E Payment Pros, in the amount not to exceed $62,850 for the purchase of one additional license and scanning station and renewal of two existing licensing, maintenance, and support packages for the digital remittance processing system and scanners for the period October 1st, 2024 through September 30th, 2027, and submitting a contract with said RFP exemption.
Right. Dominique Tatum, Fiscal Department. This is the contract with F&E. This is a service that we use in the Treasury Department. They pretty much scan digital copies of every check that we receive, and it creates a file that we send over to the bank so that they can deposit it into our accounts.
Thank you, Dominique. Are there questions from the board on this item? Seeing no questions, I will make a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Melanie Say. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Thank you.
Next, item BC 2024-916, Department of Human Resources recommending an award on RQ 14687 and submitting a contract with P&A Administrative Services Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $210,000 for employee flexible spending account administration services effective upon signatures of all parties for the period January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2027.
Stephen Witt with Human Resources. This is a contract with P&A Administrative Services for our employee flexible spending account administration. This was conducted through an RFP conducted this year. We had 10 submissions. P&A Administrative Services was scored the highest and provides the best value for the county. They are the current incumbent, and their new proposal reflects a slight decrease in price.
Okay, Stephen, thank you. Are there questions from the board on this item? Mr. Mackler, please.
Stephen, do you think the decrease was just more competitive, or what?
I believe so. One of the vendors posed a question of what our current rates were during the RFP process, so that became public information.
Yeah.
And thus, with all the vendors knowing what the price is, I think their hand was forced to bring the price down.
And this is what they charge us, right, to handle all the employees flexible? Okay. And that's for a 3-year period?
That is for a 3-year period. It's a not to exceed. It's based on a per employee per month fee. So as our number of employees go up or down, the cost will go up or down.
Number of enrolled employees, right? Or is it number of enrolled employees in flexible spendings account, or if
I'll
just
have to double check for you. It might be that. It might just be our total number of employees, our benefits eligible.
Are there additional questions? Seeing no further questions, I will make the motion to approve the item. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Miller. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item approved.
Thank you.
Next item.
Next item, BC 2024-917, Department of Information Technology submitting an amendment to a contract with the Ohio Academic Resource Network, or NET, a division of the Ohio Department of Higher Education's Ohio Technology Consortium for the purchase of AWS Direct Connect services for the period August 1st, 2023 through July 31st, 2026, to extend the time period an additional 36 months from the effective date of this amendment, to change the AWS Direct Connect from 1 gigabyte to 5 gigabyte, and to update the monthly recurring charge to $400, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $12,600, effective upon signatures of all parties.
Good morning. Dennis Sullivan, Department of IT. As Cheryl just read into the record, this is the first amendment with ORNet, which is the IT standard platform for the AWS Direct Services. We're going from a 1 gigabit dedicated port to a 5 gigabit dedicated port. The monthly recurring charge presently for the one is $200 a month. It's going up to $400 a month. This is needed as part of the growing and evolving disaster recovery business continuity planning. And this takes the internet traffic off our main Microsoft environment. So thus we have a disaster recovery intent to have it on an alternative route.
Okay, Dennis, thank you. Are there questions from the board on this item? Seeing no questions, I will make the motion to approve it. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Levine Ross. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item approved. Next item, please.
Next item, BC 2024-918, Department of Information Technology submitting an RFP exemption which will result in an award recommendation to AT&T Corporation in the amount not to exceed $25,000 for line assessment and removal services related to migration from plain old telephone services POTS to a new technology effective upon signatures of all parties for a period of 3 months, and submitting a contract with said RFP exemption.
Dennis Sullivan again with Department of IT. This is AT&T wiring in a wiring closet in Just Center. This is a one-time professional services contract to get their personnel to go in. They're gonna assess the whole environment. They're gonna eliminate lines that are no longer in use. They're actually gonna label lines. They're gonna give us a spreadsheet, and this is all part of the migration of what we can convert from POTS lines over to cellular.
Okay, Dennis, thank you again. Are there questions from the board on this item? Seeing no questions, I will make the motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Paul Porter. All in favor to approve, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item approved.
Thank you.
Next item.
Next item, BC 2024-919, Court of Common Pleas, Juvenile Court Division, submitting an amendment to a contract with Golden Ciphers for Positive Youth Development Services for court-referred youth ages 12 to 18 with high risk for recidivism for the period July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024, to extend the time period to June 30th, 2026, to replace the insurance requirements effective July 1st, 2024, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $109,746.40.
Good morning, Sharon Allen, Juvenile Court. This vendor shall provide various positive youth development activities and employment training for referred youth ages 12 to 18 who are at risk of recidivism. Again, it is to extend the time period until June 30th, 2026, increase the funds, replace the insurance requirements. This contract amendment is 100% funded by the Reclaim Grant.
Thank you, Sharon. Are there questions from the board on this item? Seeing no questions, I will make the motion to approve it. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Melanie Say. All in favor to approve, say aye. Aye. Oppose? The item is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Next item, BC 2024-920, Court of Common Pleas, Juvenile Court Division, submitting an amendment to an agreement with City of Pepper Pike for Community Diversion Program Services for the period January 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2024, to extend the time period to December 31st, 2026, to replace the insurance requirements effective January 1st, 2025, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $1,800.
Hello, Marie Andel, Juvenile Court. This is a 2-year amendment. It's sending it to December 31st, 2026 for the Community Diversion Program in Pepper Pike, which implements effective services with a focus on rehabilitation and accounting versus deterrence-based sanctions. This includes skill-building groups, restorative justice programs, community service, and mentoring. The original contract was in the amount of $600. Approval of this amendment will increase the contract total to $2,400. We did replace the insurance requirements, which added in the commercial general liability to $2 million for the general aggregate, and it also, which previously did not have on there, the umbrella excess liability or the cyber risk insurance, which was now added.
Okay, thank you, Marie. Are there questions from the board on this item? Seeing no questions, I will make the motion to approve it. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Miller. All in favor to approve, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Next item, BC 2024-921, Sheriff's Department submitting an RFP exemption which will result in a payment to Huntington Convention Center of Cleveland in the amount not to exceed $11,225 as final payment for audio-visual services and equipment and security in connection with 2024 Civil Treatment Workplace Training for county employees and submitting a purchase order with said RFP exemption.
Good morning, Chris Costin, Sheriff's Department. We had 2 different days at the Convention Center where we hosted the mandatory civil workplace training for our jail staff, including correction officers. This is just to make the payment for the rental of the audio and visual services and equipment.
Thank you, Chris. Are there questions from the board? Seeing no questions, I will make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second? Seconded by Ms. Melanie Say. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2024-922, Sheriff's Department recommending an award on RQ 14078 and submitting a contract with Thales DIS USA Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $335,000 for the purchase of live scan and fingerprint scanning equipment, hardware and software licensing, maintenance and support effective upon signatures of all parties for a period of 3 years.
Chris Costin, Sheriff's Department. This contract will be replacing our outdated live scan software and equipment.
Okay, Chris, thank you again. Are there questions from the board? Seeing no questions, I will make the motion to approve the item. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Levine Ross. All in favor to approve, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item approved. Next item.
Next, item BC 2024-923, Sheriff's Department submitting an RFP exemption which will result in an award recommendation to Donald Kern in the amount not to exceed $90,000 for implementation and monitoring of the settlement agreement terms in connection with United States District Court, Northern District of Ohio, case number 120 CB 2649, Clay et al. Versus Cuyahoga County et al., effective upon signatures of all parties for a period of 1 year, and submitting a contract with said RFP exemption.
Chris Coughlin, Sheriff's Department. We also have Brendan Healy here to discuss this item.
Yes, this is part of as stated, a settlement agreement, the Clay class action lawsuit, and as part of it, we have a compliance coordinator, and we also had to hire a few other positions, one of which is a medical expert to look at the quality care that inmates are getting, and this person was recommended by our compliance coordinator. He's licensed in Ohio, has run corrections medical companies in the past, and he's worked for city government as a medical staff member.
Thanks, Brendan. Thanks, Chris. Are there questions from the board on this item? Councilman, please.
So, there has been a question raised as to whether everybody that gets transported from the jail to Metro really needs to be transported. And the transporting is very expensive because we have to send a deputy and a corrections officer along with them and stay with them while they're there. So my question is whether this person would be able to look at that situation and advise us as to whether there's utilization improvements that he would recommend.
So I think technically that would be outside the scope of what he's doing. He's more looking at medical charts, looking at quality of medical care, looking at the setup within our jail facility to ensure that inmates are getting adequate medical care. We do have a contract monitor that would look at that stuff, but in terms of what this expert will be doing, it's more, are the inmates getting quality medical care, whether that's outside medical care or inside the jail facility. I don't think he's going to be able to weigh in on whether that inmate should have been sent out or not.
Okay, fine. Okay.
Mr. Mackler, please.
Brendan, is this an hourly charge, a monthly fee? Is it a set amount? How is he billing us?
Yeah, I believe in the contract, it's $400 an hour. And then there's a portal charge, which would be $200 an hour. So he's in Alabama. And so if he flies here, $200 an hour, although there might be a way to eliminate some of that cost because he may get some privileges to go into Metro's system. Since he is licensed in Ohio, there are some things we have to work out with Metro on that end, but he may be able to do a lot of chart reviews remotely.
Great, thanks.
Any final questions? Seeing no further questions, I will make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Miller. All in favor to approve, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item is approved. Next item, please.
Next, item BC 2024-924, Medical Examiner's Office recommending an award and submitting a purchase order with Gentech Scientific LLC in the amount not to exceed $14,680 for a sole source purchase of repairs and one preventative maintenance visit on the Thermo TSQ Vantage LC-MS system, and submitting a purchase order with said RFP exemption. I mean, not an RFP exemption, award, sorry.
Paul Porter, Department of Purchasing. I know that Hugh made us aware of this item. I'm not sure whether he said he wasn't going to be here today, but this one's fairly standard. We have to work with this specific vendor. Mary Beth, if you have any additional info.
Yeah, I can try to pinch hit on this one. We're using grant dollars to pay for this expense, and as Paul mentioned, the only person who can do the service on this equipment is the manufacturer, which is why it is a sole source. What they're going to do is, in addition to normal routine maintenance, They're going to, we had some extra grant dollars available, so the vendor is going to come out and do some in-depth preventative maintenance and extensive cleaning. They're also going to be doing the full data calibration and verification on the system.
All right, Mary Beth, thank you. Councilman, please.
I think we have enough information to move forward, and I'll move approval.
Move for approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. McAleer. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item is approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2024-925, Medical Examiner's Office submitting an amendment to a contract with Avantra Group Corporation, DBA Avantra Waste Solution Incorporated, for biomedical waste removal services for various county buildings for the period January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2024, to extend the time period to December 31st, 2027, to change the pricing for the renewal term in accordance with Exhibit 1A, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $216,452.
Morning, Paul Porter, Department of Purchasing, on behalf of the Medical Examiner's Office. This is an amendment to a current agreement for biomedical waste disposal. The reason it's not only with the Medical Examiner's Office is that this covers things like the Sharps containers throughout other county buildings. So the primary user is the Medical Examiner's Office, which you can tell from the funding breakdown there. There was an advanced question about the costs going down. The costs actually aren't going down. We're just lowering the amount that's allocated by department. So we're going to be paying, for pickups. We're not having a lower rate per pickup. We're just kind of trying to plan a little bit better because the last time around we didn't end up spending as much as we anticipated. And this is a not to exceed contract. It's not a fixed dollar amount. So we'll only pay on the services that are used.
Thank you, Mr. Porter. Are there questions from the board on this item? Mr. Mackler.
Good morning, Paul. Did the rates go up on a per pickup, or is it the same? Would they give us for the next 3 years?
I'll have to get you a follow-up on that. I don't know the rate specifically. Hugh or I will follow up through Cheryl.
Any additional questions? Seeing no further questions, I will make a motion to approve this item. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilman Miller. All in favor to approve, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next item, please.
Next item, BC 2024-926, Department of Public Safety and Justice Services recommending an award and submitting a purchase order with the City of Bedford in the amount not to exceed $32,366.57 to provide funding to support the Bedford Municipal Court Domestic Violence Victims Advocate Program for the period January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2025.
Good morning, Mary Beth Vaughn, again from Public Safety, and with me is Jill Smilik, our Deputy Director. The City of Bedford recently lost a longtime source of grant funding for their Domestic Violence Victim Advocate Program, and they're requesting one-time funding to allow them to continue to deliver service while they transition to other sources of funding. Bedford's program works very closely with our county witness victim services and is considered an important partner as the Bedford Court Domestic Violence Program supports victims of intimate partner violence in 14 communities.
Okay, Mary Beth, thank you. Are there questions from the board? Yes, Levine, please.
Yes, do you know what funding source that they lost?
Their VAWA.
Additional questions? Seeing no further questions, I will make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second?
Another.
Oh, I apologize, yeah.
Are there any other cities that are in the same predicament?
Good morning, Jill Smilik with Public Safety and Justice Services. Most of the municipal courts throughout Cuyahoga County are served through the Journey Center for Safety and Healing, and they provide victim advocacy in the municipal courts for misdemeanor cases. This court elected to hire their own advocate. They started it in 2000, so it's a long-standing program. There are a couple other municipal courts that have victim advocates. However, this one is the only one that was reliant on these VAWA dollars, which they unfortunately did not receive this year. So this is just one-time bridge funding to get them through so that they can plan for next year.
Mr. Mackler, please.
Joe, good morning. Is the 32, is the advocate a part-time employee? Is it a full-time employee? Is this paying for half of the expenses, or what's the makeup of the 32, and what's it go towards?
Yes, this is a full-time employee, and this funding provides roughly half of their salary.
Just one more question. Does this advocate serve other cities as well, or is it just the city of Bedford? I thought it was other cities connected.
Yes, so this is, the city of Bedford is the fiscal agent for Bedford Municipal Court, so that's why the agreement is with the city of Bedford, but the municipal court serves 14 different communities.
Okay, any final questions? Seeing no further questions, I will make the motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Levine Ross. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item is approved. Thank you. Next item?
Next item, BC 2024-927, Department of Public Safety and Justice Services submitting an RFP exemption which will result in a payment to AT&T Corporation for network connectivity services for the next generation 911 system and the amount not to exceed $67,060.70 as payment for 911 circuit charges for out-of-contract circuits for the period September 1st, 2024 through December 8th, 2024, and submitting a purchase order with said RFP exemption.
Good morning, Mary Beth Vaughn, and we have 3 contracts with AT&T that cover the 911 circuits. One ended June 30th of this year, one ended July 31st of this year, the other ended October 31st of this year. We started back in December of 2023 formally asking AT&T for the renewal documents. They didn't get us the first of the documents until August 14th. And the last of the documents were not received until November 21st. So during that time, we stopped, as we came out of contract, we stopped paying them. So later on this agenda, you do have 2 of the contracts. There was another contract that was approved at last Tuesday's county council meeting. That contract is effective upon execution by all parties. So what this purchase order is going to do is just make sure that we can get AT&T caught up to date. Now that we know everything has been approved and it's starting to get in place, is just to pay those outstanding bills before the fiscal cutoff tomorrow. And basically what it'll do is everything we owe them in 2024, we will pay them using 2024 dollars.
Okay, Mary Beth, thank you. Are there questions from the board? Seeing no questions, I will make a motion to approve. Is there a second? Seconded by Miss Melanie Say. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The item is approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2024-928, Department of Public Safety and Justice Services submitting an amendment to a contract with Mental Health Services for Homeless Persons Incorporated, DBA Frontline Services for Children Who Witness Violence Program for the period December 1st, 2022 through November 30th, 2024, to extend the time period to November 30th, 2025, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $477,565 in accordance with Addendum 1, effective upon signatures of all parties.
This contract provides 24/7 hotline services for children who witness violence through referrals from law enforcement and social service agencies. We actually had originally intended to go out for an RFP on this contract. We do so every 2 years. However, we are in the middle of an evaluation of our program for children who are exposed to violence. Those results are expected at the end of January. So our intent was to ask to amend this for 1 year so that we can incorporate the results of those evaluations in the new RFP.
Thank you, Mary Beth. Are there questions from the board on this item? Seeing no questions, I will make a motion to approve it. Is there a second? Seconded by Miss Melanie Say. All in favor to approve, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next item.
Next, item BC 2024-929, Department of Public Safety and Justice Services submitting an amendment to a contract with AT&T Corporation for renewal of DS1 lines for CAMA T1 circuits for network connectivity services for the next generation 911 system for the period July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2024, to extend the time period to June 30th, 2025, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $35,660.
Good morning, Mary Beth Vaughn again. These lines run to and from the PSAPs to the local Motorola data center and the backup center in the Arlington, Columbus area. This amendment is only for 1 year because eventually these types of circuits are not going to be needed with the next versions of the 911 system. So AT&T is only doing the cost renewal on a 12-month basis, and there's no change in the circuit costs.
Thank you again. Are there questions from the board? Seeing no questions, I will make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Miller. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next item?
Next item, BC 2024-930, Department of Public Safety and Justice Services recommending an award on RQ 14709 and enter into a contract with SHI International Corporation in the amount not to exceed $84,694.49 for the Dark Web Threat Intelligence Platform for Northeast Ohio Regional Fusion Center, effective upon signatures of all parties for a period of 1 year.
This software will allow Fusion intelligence analysts access to data from restricted forums, marketplaces, messaging platforms, and social media posts and data leaks. This is a grant-funded contract. Both Ohio EMA and the Fusion Center have approved the award. It was competitively bid, and we are going with the lowest cost compliant vendor.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions from the board on this item? Seeing no questions, I will make a motion to approve it. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Levine Ross. All in favor to approve, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Question. The item's approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2024-931, Department of Public Safety and Justice Services submitting an RFP exemption which will result in an award recommendation to AT&T Corporation and the total amount not to exceed $194,700 for renewal of the IP Flex and SIP circuits for network connectivity services for the next generation 911 system for the period November 1st, 2024 through October 31st, 2027, and submitting a contract with said RFP exemption.
Good morning. These circuits allow the dispatch centers to answer all of their calls to their 10-digit lines within the call-taking system. It's a more efficient way for them to operate, and it also allows the PSAPs to handle their calls remotely if they needed to evacuate their physical locations.
Okay, Mary Beth, thank you again. Are there questions from the board on this item? Seeing no questions, I will make a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Mr. McAleer. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item approved. Next item?
Next item, BC 2024-932, Department of Health and Human Services, Office of the Director, submitting an amendment to a contract with United Way of Greater Cleveland for community resource navigation and MedRefer services to residents of Cuyahoga County for the period January 1st, 2024 through December 31st, 2024, to extend the time period to December 31st, 2025, to expand the scope of services to include proactive customer services as further described in Exhibit 1A, to include the terms for a lump sum payment, to amend Exhibit 2 budget to add Exhibit 2A representing the budget for the amendment term, effective upon signatures of all parties, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $327,333.
Good morning, Marcos Cortez with Health and Human Services on behalf of the Office of the Director. Again, this is a contract amendment with United Way for our MedRefer program. This program allows us to provide 24 hours a day, 7 days a week access to Health and Human Services information and referral for Cuyahoga County residents. Specifically, United Way will provide referral services for low-income, uninsured or underinsured Cuyahoga County residents seeking prescription drug assistance that is free or low cost. We are also adding, as you heard, a new piece shifting from a reactive to a proactive customer service. Instead of waiting for residents to call 211, We want to use 211's data and network to anticipate needs. This means contacting residents when they may be impacted by an event such as a natural disaster or during a community-wide issue such as a food or housing crisis. For example, residents could receive texts about available rental assistance or disaster relief resources that are short, behavioral, economically informed texts that spur a specific action from our residents in response.
Thank you, Marcos. Are there questions from the board? Councilman?
Yes. How are we gonna collect resident contact information so that when we need to contact residents, we can contact them? And then how are we gonna decide who to contact for what?
Good morning, David Merriman, Director of the Department of Health and Human Services. Want to make sure I have the questions correctly. First is, how are we going to collect the information?
How are we gonna collect resident contact information so that when we wanna contact people, we know how to contact them?
So United Way 211 already has some ability to collect that information in their system. It's a service they've been developing, and we've been talking with their leadership about supporting that so that when a caller calls, they have an option for their contact information to be stored by United Way for future contacts. So we're relying on them to maintain the technology, to do the collection, and I think it's their intent to use that contact and that relationship on an ongoing basis. I think to the second question, it was about, is it about what will we do with it or how will we use it?
The question is, how do we decide when and how to use the system? Who do we contact and why do we contact them?
Sure. So that's a great question. I think that's at the heart of this exploration and what we've been talking to United Way leadership about. We have seen time and again instances where there has been a natural disaster or a large-scale incident and resources flood into the community, and at times we are not as efficient or not optimizing our ability to get word out about those resources. I think a good example was during COVID, there were buckets of housing resources that would come into the community. Various agencies, various systems would get a large amount of housing assistance dollars, and we would pass those dollars on to organizations in our community and then use traditional means of getting word out, billboards, sometimes ads, or just relationships, emails. But I think the thought here is there not a way for us to work with United Way and others so that if they are documenting when residents call them routinely, excuse me, or on an annual basis, searching for house assistance, can't we push a text or an email out to them to say, hey, listen, we just got additional money. It has to be used in a short time frame. Here's the parameters. Let us know if you're interested. I think in many ways this is similar to the text that I personally receive from my healthcare provider, from my dental provider. If I'm traveling an airline that will just give me notices of delays or there are changes in some sort of service expectation. So we don't have a specific project that we want to work on at this time. We want to build this and so we're able to be responsive in the future.
And are we breaking new ground on this, or are there other communities around the country that have similar systems in place?
I'm not actually sure. That's a great question. And United Way is increasingly becoming United Way of Greater Cleveland is becoming the go-to provider for much of the state and much of the region. So I think our circumstances are a little different from others. And, but I think that's something we should look at. Are other communities using services in this way? And what can we learn from them? I will say I've spoken to a large school system that began documenting just the contact information of the families in their system so they can just push resources out to them on an ongoing basis. And it can be really just a low activity of just a text to say, hey, how are you doing? By the way, we have a job fair. And so I think other systems are starting to adopt this technique and this practice, and it's something that we want to explore with United Way, looking at best practices.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Good morning, David. Is United Way using the 211 data that they're collecting, or are they gonna be using our data that we currently have with all those that are on some type of assistance?
So, right now, United Way does this on a limited basis with their clients and their own data, and I think that's our intent, is to have them continue just to support them, to have this become more of a community standard in practice, their data, their systems. But I think the times for partnership will be when, something happens, and so we're including Mark Christie in this conversation. So that if there's an EMA message we're pushing out through Ready Notify, we may reach out to United Way as well and say, hey, can you push this out to your network? So that even if there's some duplication and some redundancy, we might find families that maybe aren't, or individuals that aren't signed up for Ready Notify. So it's their network, their technology, their texts, but it might be leveraging messages on our behalf or broad community messages.
But why aren't we doing that with our own individuals that we have already signed up, that if there is a new program online or a natural disaster or something like that, that those that are already receiving assistance from the county, why are we using, I'm confused on why we would be using the United Way database and not those four, right? We help over 400,000 individuals, right? 200,000+ families, right? Why isn't our goal to send these messages out to those individuals?
Sure. I think in the past, we've gotten feedback. So first off, we do. I think we've gotten a great emergency management agency, Brandy Carney, Mark Christie. I think they do a fabulous job. I think we've seen that time and again with weather incidents and natural disasters. We do that. We've always send out messages. I believe they will do it, and they're extremely proactive. But where things start to get confusing, if someone is signed up to get weather notifications or natural disaster notifications, and and there's a change in housing resources that come to the community, and we send a message out to folks that want to know about tornadoes, about low-income housing, that could get confusing. Folks might say, well, that's not what I signed up to receive a message on. Whereas if someone is calling the United Way on a regular basis saying, where's the closest food pantry to me? Or where's, how do I find rental assistance? Well, if United Way can document that, and they can begin to develop the practices of sending it out, and we can come to them to say, listen, Agency X over here is about to get $4 million of housing assistance that they have to use in 6 months. Can you please help us find clients that have reached out to you in the past?
Yeah, I guess, David, I'm not talking about the ones that are signed up for our emergency management system. I'm talking about the ones that are
Like for
getting
JFS?
Yeah, JFS or
Sure.
other public assistance, right? We help a ton of people on a daily basis. I guess why aren't we in essence creating a separate system for that versus just the ones that call 211?
We're exploring that separate system ourselves as well. Right now, we have used Ready Notify for some of that communication, and because it's available to us. The problem is a person will get a notice of a pending SNAP change on the same account as a tornado.
Right.
So that's confusing. So we are looking at doing this proactive customer service broadly within DHHS. This is a high priority. It's complicated because it involves both technology and policy. So I hope to get there, frankly. I hope that is the way that we engage with the public on an ongoing basis in the future. Right now, United Way is piloting. They're beginning to do this. I think there's a lot that we can learn from them. I think even if we had that system right now, and we were using it internally, I would still want to do this with United Way because they're a trusted provider. They've got a solid brand. And if a client got a notice from us and them about housing, a housing resource, I can live with that. I think that would be great. Our challenge is to get it out to everybody through as many means as possible.
I guess that's kind of where I'm going. Are we able to give United Way our data that we have, right? So those people that are on SNAP and other benefits, public benefits, that if we get $100 million in ARPA funding again, right, and we create a rental assistance program, that we can say, okay, United Way, push this out to those 400,000 individuals that are on some type of public assistance that the levy serves, to let them know. Like, is there plans for that? Or right now, are we only reaching out to those that call 211? I know there will be duplication there, but not everyone that calls 211 receives benefits from the county.
As it stands right now, I think the answer is no. So if a person calls us to sign up for SNAP and Medicaid and they give us their phone number, that's going to be a SNAP or Medicaid data piece, and we don't share that data with anyone. And frankly, the rules around SNAP, Medicaid, TANF, child support are so significant that we don't share personal case information with outside entities. And so to my knowledge, we cannot pass SNAP data onto an organization like 211 to do the communication on our behalf, because that would be sharing a client's phone information with, potentially without their permission.
That's where maybe the advantages of we create our own
Exactly.
internal system.
And potentially duplicative. We have one, they have one. Again, if we're all doing the same message, you can send the message, apologies if you've already gotten this, but hey, there's a new scam going on in the community. Please take note. We advise you to change your PIN and respond as quickly as possible. Thanks.
Okay, are there any further questions? Seeing no further questions, I will make a motion to approve the item. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Levine Ross. All in favor to approve, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Next item, BC 2024-933, Department of Health and Human Services, Cuyahoga Job and Family Services, submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in a payment to Centers for Families and Children in the amount not to exceed $452,282.04 for the Ohio Works First program for reconciliation of invoices received between September 1st, 2024 and October 31st, 2024 for services rendered under contract number 3438 during the contract term of January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2024, and submitting a purchase order with said RFP exemption.
Marcos Cortez again with Health and Human Services on behalf of Cuyahoga Jobs and Family Services. Again, this is a purchase order to bring us current with this vendor on payments. At the end of 2022, the account for these services were over budget, and we had to hold several months of contract or of invoices. We were informed that we needed to wait until the new budget was open in 2023 to make payments. However, we misunderstood that and actually paid the invoices for the 2022 contract from the new contract that began in 2023. By doing that, the new contract started in the hole, and that has carried on until today, until 2024. So what we should have done at the end of 2022 was issue a purchase order to pay those final invoices, which would not have impacted this current contract. So this purchase order corrects the issue and brings us current through October 2024.
Thank you, Marcos. Are there questions from the board on this item? Seeing no questions, I will make the motion to approve it. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Paul Porter. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next item?
Next item, BC 2024-934, Department of Health and Human Services, Cuyahoga Job and Family Services, submitting an RFP exemption, which will result in a payment to Maximus Human Services Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $489,520.30 for the Ohio Works First program for reconciliation of invoices received between August 1st, 2024 and October 31st, 2024 for services rendered under contract number 3437 during the contract term of January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2024, and submitting a purchase order with said RFP exemption.
Marcos Cortez with Health and Human Services on behalf of Cuyahoga Jobs and Family Services. Again, this is a purchase order similar to the last one. There were two vendors on this master contract for Ohio Works First services. Again, this PO corrects the issue and brings us current through October 2024.
Thank you again. Are there questions from the board on this item? Seeing no questions, I will make a motion to approve it. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Miller. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? The item is approved. Next item?
Next item, BC 2024-935, Department of Health and Human Services, Cuyahoga Job and Family Services, submitting a memorandum of understanding via contract number 4895 with Cleveland Cuyahoga County Workforce Development Board in the amount not to exceed $113,296 for job readiness and training for recipients of temporary assistance for needy families and food assistance employment and training services for the period July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025.
Marcos Cortez again on behalf of Cuyahoga Jobs and Family Services. The Cuyahoga County Workforce Development Board ensures user-friendly access to a broad array of quality workforce services to residents seeking employment and/or training. They will process approved individual training accounts for OWF, Ohio Works First Cash, participants and SNAP recipients seeking skill training, as well as provide access to the Comprehensive Case Management and Employment Program and other youth services for eligible OWF, SNAP, and employment and training participants. The reason why we're pretty late on this one is you may know that Ohio Means Job became a nonprofit at the beginning of July. So we had to change the way we do business. Normally, we had an interagency agreement with them. So this MOU went back and forth several times, and we had to work with them on their certificate of insurance because in the past they didn't have to have insurance because it was an interagency agreement. So it took quite a while to do the negotiation back and forth with them.
Thank you, Marcos. Are there questions from the board on this item? Seeing no questions, I will make a motion to approve it. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Miller. All in favor to approve, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item approved. Thank you. Thank you. Next item, please.
Next item, BC 2024-936, Department of Health and Human Services, Community Initiatives Division, Office of Homeless Services, submitting an amendment to a master contract with various providers for coordinated entry expansion services in connection with the Continuum of Care program for the period November 1st, 2023 through January 31st, 2025, to add one new provider effective February 1st, 2024, to add additional funds in the total amount not to exceed $478,844, to add section 4.5 to Article 4 indemnities and liabilities, to amend 12.1 notices section to add a designated recipient for CMHA, amend Exhibit 1 to add Exhibit 1A representing updates to the scope of work, and amend Exhibit 2 to add Exhibit 2A, which represents the budget for the additional funds through this amendment as listed for items 1 and 2 and for the new provider listed on the printed agenda.
Good afternoon, Erin Reardon, Office of Homeless Services. This is our amendment to our master agreement with Frontline and United Way 211. We are adding CMHA as an additional provider. This is late because HUD was significantly delayed in providing the grant agreement to us. And then with CMHA being a new provider with OHS, there was significant back and forth agreement or conversations to get both the insurance and the contract language updated.
Okay, Aaron, thank you. Are there questions from the board on this? Please, Levine.
What role will CMHA play as the new provider?
So they're going to provide housing navigation for any CMHA vouchers or any CMHA-related housing. And that's going to be critical because that's a big issue with providers or with our clients who are homeless or facing homelessness, that they just don't know how to navigate that process. So we'll have basically like an in and somebody who can provide some additional information.
That's good.
Yeah.
Are there additional questions? Seeing no further questions, I will make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Levine Ross. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Oppose? Item approved. Next item.
Next item, BC 2024-937, Department of Health and Human Services, Community Initiatives Division, Office of Homeless Services, submitting an RFP exemption which will result in an award recommendation to the Northeast Ohio Coalition for the Homeless in the amount not to exceed $170,000 for identification crisis collaborative services for the period September 1st, 2024 through August 31st, 2025, and submitting a contract with said RFP exemption.
Good afternoon, Erin Reardon, Office of Homeless Services again. This is a new contract with NEOC to provide ID crisis collaborative services. They're a new provider. This used to be operated through a fiscal agent, and so now NEOC took this on as a program that was merged into theirs. So there was a little bit of a delay because that process wasn't finalized until September, and then we had to wait a little bit more back and forth on insurance and contract language.
Okay, Aaron, thank you again. Are there questions from the board on this item? Seeing no questions, I will make a motion to approve it. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Miller. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on.
Exemptions, first item, BC 2024-938. Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Children and Family Services, recommending an alternative procurement process which will result in payments to various providers for Title IV-E non-recurring adoption expenses for children with special needs pursuant to Administrative Code Chapter 5101, Section 2, Subsection 49, Rule 21, for the period January 1st, 2025 through January 1st, 2028.
Good morning, Ramon Caldas, Health and Human Services, on behalf of the Division of Children and Family Services. This is an alternate procurement request for non-recurring adoption expenses for children with special needs to be in compliance with the Ohio Administrative Code. These are one-time expenses capped at $2,000 per child and often include attorney's fees and court costs. Because these invoices are unpredictable and vary case by case, a competitive bidding process is not feasible. And approval today will give us a mechanism to process these invoices when they come in. These invoices are also reimbursable at a rate of 50%.
Okay, thank you, Ramon. Are there questions from the board?
Yes. Have we handled this in the same way in the past as opposed to this being new?
We handled this through PASS last time, the alternate procurement with PASS. PASS now is handled by the state, so this would be a new alternate procurement.
Okay, fine.
Okay, are there additional questions? Seeing no further questions, I will make a motion to approve the item. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Miller. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item approved. Moving on.
Moving on to consent agenda items BC 2024-939 through BC 2024-942.
A handful of items, board members. If there's any questions. Okay, seeing no questions. Do we need more time? No? Okay, so seeing no questions, I will make the motion to approve the items. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Miller. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? They are approved. Moving on.
No other business?
Any public comment?
No public comment?
I will make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Second by Miss Melanie Say. All in favor to adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all.